Today, I wanted to reshare a story that I read in a recent book that I just recommended on the podcast. There is a hole in my cup, and it asks this question: Are you sure? Are you sure of what? Is probably what you're asking, Ben. Well, he tells a story in the book about an NBA basketball coach who was at the top of his game, ready and going for the championship. And there was a moment a few months back where one of the star players had a moment where he had to decide to put him in or keep him on the bench. And the moment goes where he listened to the assistant coach instead of his gut. And by not having that player on the field, or sorry, not on the field, but on the court, they lost the championship. And as he's working with this coach that wrote the book, Sven Erlandson, he tells the story of that he realizes that in that moment where he second guessed, blew the championship, didn't make the right decision months before, what he really heard was his mother's voice saying, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Because his entire life, that was a thought that she always introduced. Interesting enough, it was illuminated when he went on a ski trip and he was talking to his mom, and she said, "Are you sure that's a good idea to be doing?" And the moment that happened, Sven pointed out, that's your problem right there. Someone else in your head is saying, "Are you sure?" It's so important that it's an entire chapter in that book. But why am I bringing this to you? What is significant about this that I want you to learn? Well, the core foundational part of it is, yes, there are these micro things in your life, like "Are you sure?" that introduces momentarily self-doubt that prevents you from growing up, from becoming whoever it is that you truly want to be. It's these moments where the rubber hits the road. It's these moments where things get messy. It is these moments where your life is decided. Over and over and over again, I see it with men that I work with, that there's these thoughts, these stories, this frame of mind that is not theirs, that was planted subconsciously years ago, and is still running. And I can tell you there are frameworks of "Are you sure?" in my head, because I second guess myself a lot. And in those moments, "Are you sure?" I'm not really sure whose voice it is, but it's definitely there in my head. And there's these moments just like this that we never uncover, that we never do the deep work to get better being a husband, better being a father, better being a human being. But at the same time, it's the context. Are you sure? That could be holding you back. The question is it? Is it that, or is it something else? So many times in our life, there are, like I said, these moments we don't even realize are happening. And when we realize they're not happening, it's unique enough, we don't even see it coming. And when it does, poof, it's like a light bulb went off. Not just any light bulb, like a 1,000-watt light bulb. Why is this moment important going forward? Because it illustrates why coaching works. Something that I often don't do a good enough job here in the podcast is explaining the difference between coaching and therapy. Therapy is really good at asking some good questions, diving deep into our psyche, our story, and just kind of unpacking things. But what we often don't work on in therapy is living in the future. To live in the future, you have to let go of some of the things in the past. You have to realize how some of these things are interrupting you. A coach works in a little bit different way that specializes in knowing these patterns, identifying them and understanding, wow, boom, right there. That's what's happening. A coach helps you live towards something, helps you find and advocate yourself to get that goal. I've used the analogy maybe a while back, but not recently, that a coach is a lot like a GPS on Google. Google doesn't care whether you swerved at a driver, whether you gave him the finger. Google only wants you to get to your destination. And it's going to help you find the fastest route. But within all of this, there still is the question, are you sure? I don't know. You have to answer that for yourself. If you've been listening to the podcast and you want to move forward, if you've been listening and you want to understand more about what coaching is, I invite you to reach out. I invite you to be part of an experience that you probably have never, ever had. And also, contemplate, when was the last time you were invited to something? Usually the only thing we get invited to is a wedding. This is an invitation to change your life. Head on over to bencloy.com, upper right-hand corner, or simply shoot me an email, ben@bencloy.com. Guys, that is all I have for you today, and I am sure this episode is done, and I am positive I'll be back tomorrow.